Gaza War Day 219. No end in sight. Thank you to everybody who commented yesterday on my um shocking, to me anyway, and I guess to many of you, discussion of Nader's tweet where he estimated that the death toll is probably closer to 200,000 rather than 35,000. Um, we won't know, I guess, the numbers. We may never know the exact numbers. Remember, when you look at the Vietnam War, apparently the Vietnam War death toll estimate ranges between 2 and 5 million. And I did quite a lot of research about the Congo and Rwanda wars death tolls, and those also have a unbelievably wide range of estimates because it is almost impossible to, well, it is impossible actually to determine the exact numbers in mass death events like these. So I'm back tonight. Not There's no deep dives tonight either. There's no historical lecture tonight. There's just a report from the fronts because the fronts, you guys are unbelievably on fire. I mean, the airstrikes that Israel has been doing have been, people have been saying they've been the most intense since the beginning of the war, since maybe more intense than the very opening days of the airstrikes of the war. But so to have the battles been incredibly intense, and maybe I'll show you a map just to give you a sense of where things are happening, because the past couple of days there's been a lot of news of fighting in Zaytun neighborhood. But if you look at this map of Gaza, okay, Zaytun is here, Jabaliya is here. These are at the right in the center of Gaza City in the north, right? We've talked before about Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, the buffer zone, the Erez checkpoint. There's been fighting in all of these places, but there's been a re-invasion of the north, an attack on Zaytun in the past few days, and then their Israelis are attacking Jabaliya over the past day. And I'm going to tell you a number of operations that is going to boggle your minds in terms of what the resistance is doing here. There's also fighting in the middle here in central Gaza, in the Nusayrat, in and around Nusayrat camp and Deir el-Balah, and then all the way down here in Rafah. So huge fight, huge, impactful fighting all up and down the strip. A really a tempo of operations that is hard to summarize, but that's not all that's going on. There's also Hezbollah, and Hezbollah has also been hitting Israel on the Israel's northern front in possibly not, yeah, actually new ways for this war. So yesterday, Saturday, there was a building at Metil, just to give you a sense of their daily summary. Metilla settlement was attacked, Al Samaka was attacked, Ruwaysat Al Karn in Shaba Farms, and the key one is Beit Hillel military base, and newly established Iron Dome platforms were targeted by an air attack with assault drones. They were directly hit, and some were completely disabled. After the air attack that targeted the Iron Dome platforms at the Beit Hillel base, the fighters of Hezbollah again launched an assault drone to target the location of the expected gathering of the Israeli enemy's officers and soldiers following the attack. And despite the enemy's attempt to intercept it with an F-16, it failed to do so. The drone reached its target and hit it accurately. So this tells you something about the progressive, incremental deterioration of Israel's missile defense in the face of the patient grinding of all of the surveillance equipment, technical equipment, and now they're starting to hit the batteries. This is not the first Iron Dome battery of missiles that Hezbollah has hit and targeted. And then they followed it up. I guess they wanted to see whether how successful and what the consequences of taking that Iron Dome battery were. So they launched a drone 20 minutes later and it hit its target directly, even after they scrambled an F-16 to try to intercept it. Hezbollah also hit the Ramia site, Jal al-Alam, and al-Marj with artillery and what they call appropriate weapons. Anti-tank missile towards Avivim. So really new things are happening on the front between Lebanon and Israel. And then there's the West Bank, which has to also not be forgotten here. There are armed clashes in Balata camp, which is Nablus, basically, between the resistance and the Israelis who re-invaded the West Bank towns again, kind of a raid. Balata camp were confronted by Saraya al-Quds, and confronting the occupation forces, targeting their military reinforcements with heavy barrages of bullets along several axes, fierce armed clashes. There's some video of it. Saraya al-Quds said, we are confronting the occupation, targeting infantry forces with heavy barrages of bullets in the alleys of the camp. Salfit Brigade of the martyr Omar Abu Layla Brigade. So different groups fighting in Balata camp in Nablus against the Israelis. The Israelis also stormed another town in around Hebron, Arub camp. They abducted 2 Palestinians. They abducted Palestinians storming the town of Marah Rabah, which is in Bethlehem. These are several of the people they kidnapped were prisoners who had been freed in previous prisoner exchanges. So again, non-agreement capable. They also killed several people. So now let's come to Jabaliya. Let's talk about the many attacks and ambushes that the resistance has done. There's a daily summary of the past 24 hours that the main, Hamas's armed wing, Al-Qassam brigades, they put out a summary. And let me read you all of it because this is a summary like I've never read before. This is, and I've been watching, they have quite a few videos to accompany these that I'm sure you'll see in the live stream on Wednesday. But let me tell you about these. I believe there are 21 reports of operations. So there's a report of fierce clashes with enemy forces east of Jabaliya camp. Al-Qassam brigades targeted gatherings of enemy forces on Route 8 south of Al Zaytun. I showed you the map of Zaytun neighborhood with heavy caliber mortar shells. Qassam brigades with Saraya al-Quds targeted gatherings on Route 10 south of Al Zaytun neighborhood with heavy caliber mortar shells. They dropped an anti-tank shell via drone on a Merkava tank east of Jabaliya camp. There's a video of this. Al-Qassam brigades targeted a Merkava tank with a Yasin 105 east of Jabaliya camp, resulting in it catching fire and the death and injury of those inside. I think there's a video of this that I saw. Al-Qassam brigades bombard enemy gatherings east of Jabaliya with mortar shells. Al-Qassam brigades targeted 2 Israeli tanks using 2 Yasin 105 behind the Riyadh al-Salahuddin Mosque east of the Jabaliya refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip. Qassam brigades bombard the enemy forces penetrating near the Al-Mabhou site east of Jabaliya in the northern Gaza Strip with mortars. Qassam brigades targeted a Zionist tank with an Al-Yasin 105, causing it to catch fire at Al-Mabhou site east of Jabaliya. From the area of the Zionist incursion east of Jabaliya, the Al-Qassam brigades bomb the occupied city of Ashkelon, with a barrage of rockets in response to the massacres against civilians. Target another Merkava tank with a Yasin 105 in the city of Jabaliya. In a complex operation, the Qassam brigades detonated a Ra'adiyya explosive device targeting a special Zionist force and targeted a troop carrier with a tandem shell east of Jabaliya city, causing the force to fall between dead and wounded. Al-Qassam brigades bombarded Sderot settlement. They target another Merkava tank with a Yasin 105 east of Jabaliya. And yet another Merkava 4 with an Al Yasin 105 near the Mazaya Halt east of Jabaliya. Bombard Sderot, another complex operation near Al Mabhu. They said they targeted a Merkava tank with an Al Yasin 105 after the enemy soldiers present at the location fled to a booby-trapped house. It was detonated, resulted in the force being killed and wounded. The amount of booby trapping that they've done, the amount of mines, minefields, booby traps that they've set in the months in between when the Israelis last withdrew and then coming back are a lot. So another special forces unit of the Israelis barricaded in a home near Al-Mazaya Hall, east of Jabaliya, were hit with 2 thermobaric grenade shells, leading to the forces members being killed or wounded. Bombing a gathering with mortars east of Jabaliya, targeting soldiers and vehicles, infiltrating into Rafah land crossing in southern Gaza with mortars in 2 separate batches in Rafah, and then another bombing of enemy gatherings and vehicles with mortars east of Rafah. So 21 different operations, all in the past 24 hours. Sorry, I'm just noticing a new news of another siege in the West Bank of the village of Azun east of Kalkilia to abduct a brother of someone who they're trying to get to turn themselves in, assaulting Palestinians, vandalizing infrastructures, demolishing a shop in the town. So anyway, sorry, but back to Gaza. There's a couple of quotes that I wanted to tell you about from Hamas officials or Qassam officials, just to give you a sense that they also view this current fighting as qualitatively or at least quantitatively very, very intense. So they've said they are fighting. Someone said something like they are fighting like they have never fought. Our people are fighting like they have never fought before. Something along those lines. I'm just going to try to find that quote for you. Hezbollah did a video of them hitting that Iron Dome, but that Iron Dome battery with the drone. The Israelis admitted 50 of their soldiers and officers were wounded in the last 24 hours. And generally speaking, what they admit is less than what they actually suffered, and what they say many among the wounded are probably actually were killed. Just trying to find this quote because it's worth just giving you a sense of how intense they understand it to be. Spokesperson for civil defense says what we are witnessing. Yeah, a spokesperson for civil defense in Gaza says what we are witnessing in terms of killing and destruction reminds us of the first days of the aggression. The Israelis are targeting civil defense teams. They have no, obviously, concern for the rules of war, scruples, ethics, nothing like that. Yes, there it is. Palestinian Islamic Jihad Secretary General Ziad Nakhaleh at a meeting of Palestinian factions in Syria says, without fighting the enemy, we will remain under occupation. Gaza is a test for all of us and for our people who suffer from occupation and displacement. Our people are fighting in Gaza as they have never fought before, and the enemy faces resistance it has never encountered before. Our Palestinian people and the resistance are fighting in Gaza in a battle like no other. We will fight and fight until victory, and I pray to God to strengthen the hearts of our people. The resistance also fired those Rojum rockets towards Kerem Shalom. I think they're having some success with those rockets, so they're keeping those up as well. I mean, is there any other uh really good spokesperson quotes? There may have been one other one that I wanted to share with you that I might leave you with. It's another, but there were no like big resistance speeches today as far as I know. It was just some of these spokespeople's speeches. I mean, spokespeople's official statements about what's happening, uh, specific statements about these ambushes at about Jabaliya and elsewhere, and just kind of communicating the intensity of the fighting as well as the intensity of the attacks. Probably worth noting too that there was a you may not have heard, but there was another. Qassam also released a video of another Israeli prisoner of war, I guess, captive from October 7th, who died due to Israeli bombing. And they made a point of saying that there was a bombing where one hostage died, and then that's another one of these hostages was wounded, and he finally succumbed to his wounds because, as Qassam said, there's no medical care anymore since Israel destroyed the hospital, destroyed the entire hospital network. So demonstrations in Tel Aviv again, asking for a ceasefire and an exchange of prisoners, as more and more of these prisoners um, die because of the Israelis killing them and bombing. Yeah, I think the one I wanted to say was another Islamic Jihad spokesperson who said basically the Israelis will not achieve their goals through this barbaric bombardment. The occupation will not achieve any of its goals and is stuck in the mud in Gaza. So I think I'll leave it there. I just wanted to convey tonight in this relatively short video, at least for the sit reps in general, how in the intensity of the fighting, the complexity of these operations, the number of Israelis that have been wounded or killed, the number of different weapons that are being used, the ambushes, and I expect this is how it's going to go for the next few days until the Israelis withdraw, probably. I don't know, judging by the precedent of how these raids or invasions have gone, the Israelis are going to end up losing a lot of soldiers, and then they're going to end up withdrawing. They have promised that they're going to keep going. Remember, the Rafah invasion was supposed to just be the Rafah invasion, but then it became now the Rafah and Gaza City and Central Gaza invasions. And they've said when they're done whatever they're doing in Rafah, they're going to go back again and again. So this was sort of what the sticking point in the negotiations was, that Israel wants to just keep the war going forever. The real question is, do they have the resources to keep the war going forever? America can certainly supply them with enough bombs to keep going forever, and I assume they will. But do they have the armor? Do they have the equipment? Do they have the soldiers? A lot of the soldiers that have died in the past few days appear to be young soldiers that are doing their 1 year or 2 year military service, not people who have come back to the army. They look like they're 18, 19-year-olds, almost child soldiers for the Israelis. So I do think attrition is happening, but we'll see how much genocide they can complete before their army faces some kind of collapse. While they have the resources, though, they're going to keep committing these horrendous atrocities that we're seeing every day. So I imagine that's how things are going to be for the next few days. I'll um I'll come back. I probably won't be back tomorrow, but I'll be back. I'm going to do some more reading so that I can get back to adding um, a lecture to the end of these reports. All right, hang in there, like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you in the next one.